Welcome back, everybody. So today we're going to be doing some fall hair color on my blonde hair without doing something that's going to be impossible to get out in the future or that's going to grow or fade out of the hair poorly. So if you like the hair in the thumbnail pic and you want to see how I did it, what I used, and why, then keep watching because I'm going to break it all down for you. So I've been testing out different formulas for the last couple weeks now in test strands throughout my hair. And I want to say that this is so important, whether you're just getting started or you're a seasoned pro. Playing with test strands is so crucial in finding a color that you like, as well as seeing how it's going to fade and grow out. And as a blonde, you have to be very careful because reds and coppers can be very difficult to get out of the hair in the future. It's also a lot easier to get peekaboos or lowlights out of your hair than if you're trying to lighten through and remove a lot of pigment throughout your whole entire head. I'm also going to touch up the very front of my hair. You could call this a money piece or a Scandi hairline. This is going to make the root look a little bit more intentional rather than just grown out and undone. So this is gonna bring this up right here, but I'm going to allow the rest of this hair to keep growing out. And if you've been following my channel for a while, you know that I use high lift on my hair, not bleach. I think that bleach is overused. It's very damaging, much more damaging than high lift is. And with my natural color being like a 6'7", I do not need to use bleach and I can get away with using high lift. So for the money piece up front, I'm going to use Wella 1296. Now this is their violet high lift. Because it is violet and not ash, the end result is actually slightly warmer. And I'm actually going to dive into this because I want to go with a warmer color for fall. So that is why I am using 1296. And again, with high lift, you're typically always using 40 volume. Okay, and for the low light, I'm going to use a dark mahogany demi-permanent. Now, this deposits to a level 5. So this would be in whatever line you want to use, a level 5 mahogany. This is going to be a little more of a cooler red than a copper or the orange spectrum. I am using Pravana. I have a little bit left of this. I believe they've actually discontinued this color itself, which is so sad to me, but you can likely still find this online for quite a while, so I'm going to put a link in the description. If you can't, it's not hard to find a 5 mahogany demi-permanent in another line that you choose. The reason I'm doing demi-permanent is because there is no reason to use permanent here. We're not lightening the hair. And since this is a demi-permanent, we are using 5 volume developer. Alrighty, so we're gonna start with clean and smooth, dry hair. So I washed my hair yesterday and blow dried it straight, so it is nice and smooth and ready to get started. And the first thing that we're gonna do is the Scandi hairline or the money piece. Scandi hairline is just a little bit of a thinner money piece. I don't want a super bold money piece that is going to grow out poorly. I want something very subtle that's just going to brighten things up a little bit around my front hairline. And we're gonna start with this because the high lift color is gonna need to process for quite a bit longer than the demi-permanent color. I actually wanna let it process for about an hour and a half. So I'm going to start with that before moving on to the darker color. Since the darker color is demi-permanent, it is more of a progressive color, which means the longer that you leave it on, the darker it can get. So we're going to apply the Scandi hairline, the high lift color. We're gonna wait a little bit before we go in and apply the darker demi-permanent. Okay, so I suggest starting your hair parted where you usually part it. This is where my hair naturally likes to part. I do switch it up sometimes, which I highly recommend, but we're gonna start with it where we normally keep it parted at. And we are just going to take a very fine section with our comb and get these baby hairs here. I personally like to be able to read through. Like, do you think you could read through this hair? If you can't read through it, that's fine. Just keep in mind that the more hair you grab, the bolder it's gonna be and the more high maintenance it's gonna be. Okay, we can clip this side out of the way and move on and grab the next section. Now, since most people have in their temple, it's quite a bit thinner. This is common for everybody on earth. It doesn't mean your hair is thinning. This is just how hair grows. You can go in a little bit if you want, just so it doesn't feel like you have a gap. So if you notice that it's not evenly spread, grab more hair where you need to. Go in a little bit deeper in that temple area if you need to. And since I went in a little bit more in that temple, I'm gonna do it, which I did a little bit, but we're gonna do it a little bit more on this side just so it blends. Okay, so and I'm just gonna use a good old scrunchie to pull everything back out of the way. We're gonna put it into a bun. Okay, so we're gonna take our high lift and just start painting it right up to the root. Now, because this is not bleach, it is not going to swell, and that means it's unlikely to bleed into the hair next to it, which is why we don't need to really put this in a foil. And we're just gonna make sure that we cover all of that new growth. Now, if you notice, I'm gonna grab some hair from down here and kind of pull it up. This is just to make sure I'm hitting all of that new growth and without just painting it completely down on my face. Okay, so now that we've got that high lift color applied, I am gonna take a foil and lay it over this, and this is just to keep the heat in so that it processes well. It also keeps things a little bit organized. So I'm gonna just take a regular foil and actually rip it in half, long ways. Then we can take this, we can put it starting in the middle, and it sticks right to it. And this is going to hold that hair color next to my scalp. My scalp produces heat, so it's really gonna help it process better. Okay, so since this is going to process for about an hour and a half, and my demi-permanent only really processes for 5 to 20 minutes. The longer you leave it on, the darker it's going to get. So I'm actually going to wait an hour so that I only have 30 minutes left of process time for these front pieces before applying the next section. In the meantime though, we can do our sectioning. I'm actually going to take the entire top section and clip that out of the way. Now, the amount of hair that you grab to leave out is completely up to you, but we don't want all of this hair to turn pink. Because we're doing a dark mahogany color, as we rinse that, the blonde in my hair is likely going to pick up some of that red. So it's gonna turn a bit pinkish. Now, I'm totally okay with that happening in some instances. I kind of want a bit of a strawberry glow, a strawberry hue to the hair, but I do still want to have some contrast and have some blonde in there. So I'm going to keep all of this hair out, and I'm also going to keep it out when I shampoo my hair. So this hair is going to be completely clipped up out of the way, and then when I rinse it, I'm going to rinse all of this hair together. This blonde will pick up some of that red color, which is totally fine, but this hair up here, we're going to try to avoid that as much as possible. All right, so let me just show you what I have here. Now keep in mind that this does not have to be perfect, so don't stress about that too much. And we're gonna use some clips here just to hold it all in place. Now, if you're stressing about how much time it's gonna take you to apply it and getting these times right, don't worry too much about it. Just know that the high lift will just stop processing after a certain amount of time. It's not like bleach, whereas if you just leave it on, it's gonna keep going and break your hair completely off. If you need to, err on the side of the high lift sitting on a little bit longer if you need to. Just know that that is okay. Okay, so it's been about 50 minutes for the high lift section to process, which means I have about 40 more minutes of process time before it's time to rinse. So I figured this is a good time. It's not gonna take me very long to apply these lowlights because less is more. So we don't need to add a ton of low lighting here to be able to see it. It's a bright color and it's gonna show up. So we're gonna start by sectioning. You're gonna divide the hair in half. We're gonna do one side at a time. So we will clip this hair out of the way. So I'm gonna go ahead and divide the hair from front to back. I've got a little bit of hair from behind the ear, just so you can see where my sectioning is. Okay, now since I already did one chunk here of the low light, we want to use that same piece. I like to work in triangles. So if you notice, this section of hair is kind of like a triangle. So we've got, comes to a point right here. And then what I do is I kind of make a triangle inside of a triangle, which is what we have done here. So we've got our big triangle, which is the main section. We're gonna pin this hair up and out of the way. And then we've got this hair here, which is essentially a triangle inside of a triangle. Okay, so here is our section we're going to be coloring. And the rest of the hair, we can clip out of the way. So the only hair that's down here is what we are going to be coloring. Now keep in mind, these sections do not need to be perfect. When the hair lays down, it's all going to blend out. And we are going to get it right up as close to the scalp as we can and just paint it right on. And then we use our fingers to make sure we're marrying it, completely saturating the hair. You can lay it onto your hand, paint into your hand, use that brush to really dig the color through so that you're fully saturating the hair. Then when you're done, take a comb and comb the color through the hair. This really helps to make sure that you've evenly saturated the hair. This is another reason why it's best to do this on hair that is clean and smooth, because it's easier to comb the color through the hair. Okay, now we're going to roll this piece up and we're gonna clip it against my scalp. And the main reason I'm doing this is so I don't get color on my neck, but it also won't hit the blonde hair and we won't end up with like a dash or a chunk of color where it shouldn't be on a piece of blonde hair. Then you want to make sure you really get the color off of your hands because you're going to be grabbing the blonde hair. You do not want to get color all over that blonde. So take a towel and just get the color off as much as you can. Now we're going to pull this piece down. And the next section I want to get is this bottom corner here. Now I have colored this in the past with a test strand. You can see it there. So here is our next chunk. This is in the bottom corner. Okay, so we're gonna release all the rest of this hair and we're going to allow this hair to bleed. So when I rinse these pieces on the bottom, I'm gonna rinse this blonde hair with it. It is going to give kind of a strawberry hue to these blonde pieces, but we are still going to keep this top section completely separate. Okay, so we are grabbing our section we're going to color. It's essentially a triangle inside of a triangle. We will clip this hair out of the way. We have our hair that we're going to color. Okay, we're going to take a metal clip and clip it out of the way. Okay, we're going to release this back section and we are going to take a triangle from the bottom. And we will clip this up and out of the way. Now this triangle inside of a triangle method is really great for peekaboos. I really like doing this on blondes when we want to add pops of color because it gives you that nice bold pops. It makes the rest of your blondes seem almost a little bit brighter and blonder, but it's giving you that contrast and just big pops of a fun color rather than a little bit more of a blended, subtle look. When my hair is down, some of those pieces are gonna come through underneath. So we're still gonna see them up front, even though we're not putting a lot up here by my face. Okay, so perfect timing. I've got about 15 more minutes left of process time for the high lift color. So we're gonna wait 15 minutes and then we're gonna rinse. And I'm gonna show you exactly how to rinse it so that you can get some bleeding in some areas that you want it to, but not in areas that you don't. Okay, so I am doing this in my sink just so it's easier for you to see. And I am using lukewarm water. It doesn't have to be freezing. And it shouldn't be super hot either. If you want the color to bleed a lot, then you can use really hot water. The cold water will stop the color from bleeding, and hot water will allow the color to bleed. Now, I'm shampooing these together, and this is a sulfate-free shampoo, so you can't see a whole lot of suds here. But if you look at the bottom in the sink, you will see that the suds are a orange reddish color. That is showing that the color is bleeding out a little, and your blonde will likely pick up some of that tone during that shampoo. And I'm actually going to use a purple conditioner. Now, the purple conditioner is not going to change the red or the mahogany at all. It will just make sure that the blonde doesn't take on a yellow tone. Remember, purple cancels yellow. It doesn't cancel red or orange. So it's really just ensuring that the blonde stays bright and doesn't take on a yellow hue. And as far as rinsing the high lift goes, I'm just getting the color out before I combine it with the top blonde section. Those two pieces can be shampooed together, and I apologize for hitting the camera with water. And I'm doing the same thing here using regular shampoo with a purple conditioner. And before I show the final result, I wanted you to see this midsection and how it did pick up some of that red and essentially toned this blonde without having to use a toner. So I came up here to show you the color in natural lighting. We can see this Scandi hairline blends really nicely. It looks so natural, and it takes this color to an update rather than just looking like it's totally grown out. It makes the roots look a lot more intentional this way. Alright guys, that is going to be it for this video. Leave me any questions that you have in the comment section and let me know what you think of my color.